Hello everybody. Today we're going to look at positive and negative numbers and how these relate to the Cartesian plane. Now since you were little you always saw numbers everywhere. You saw page numbers, you saw numbers in recipes, and I bet you didn't even look at the sign in front of it. But the fact of the matter is, if you've ever seen a number with nothing in front of it, it was called a positive number. The reason is that you don't need to have a plus sign in front of a positive number to know that it is a positive number. So if you've seen a number in a recipe, if you've looked at the weight on the scales, if you've seen a page number, all of those numbers will be seen as positive numbers because they don't have a plus or a minus in front of them, so you automatically know it is a plus number. When you learned about number lines in schools, you would usually put a 0 and then to the right hand side of this 0 at equal distances, you would write the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. If you wanted to, you could keep going with these numbers until they get bigger and bigger and bigger until you get to a million and bigger and bigger and bigger, billion, trillion and so on, and eventually you'd end up at positive infinity. So there's no reason to stop. You can go on as big as you want, but you should just know that every number with no sign in front of it can also be seen as a plus that number. So 1 with no sign is exactly the same as plus 1, or 4 with no sign in front of it is exactly the same as plus 4. Then we started learning about negative numbers. So you had your same number line with the positive numbers going to the right and at equal distances going to the left, you would depict your negative numbers. So you would have -1, -2, -3 and so on. Note that every negative number definitely needs a minus sign in front of it, otherwise it is not a negative number. The same thing happens to the negative side, so you can go bigger and bigger and bigger with your negative numbers until you get -1 million, -1 billion, -1 trillion, and eventually you'll end up with negative infinity. So this is your normal horizontal number line. The positive numbers go to the right hand side, the negative numbers go to the left hand side, and you know that the difference between -1 and 1, which in this case is +1, is that they live on opposite sides of 0. So +1 is exactly 1 unit to the right hand side of 0, whereas -1 is exactly 1 unit to the left hand side of 0. And so it goes with all of these numbers. You could also think of a number line as being a vertical line. So you would have your 0 in the middle still, and then going from 0 upwards, you would have, on equal distances from 0 going upwards, your positive numbers. So you would have 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on going upwards, until you get to positive infinity, somewhere high up in the sky. So you could think of this as, for example, when you start at ground level and you climb up the stairs or climb up a mountain or go up in a plane, all of those things are into the positive numbers because you go up from ground level or up from sea level. Or if you have $0 in the bank and you start saving, you get $1, $2, $3 and so on. It's up to the positive side because you're getting more of and you're getting bigger numbers into the positive. When we start at 0 and go equal distances from 0 but to the bottom, we go into the negative numbers. And once again, we need to put the minus in front of the number to depict that it is in fact a negative number. So you'll have -1, -2, -3 and so on, growing bigger and bigger negative numbers the further down from 0 you get. So think of this as going below ground level. So if I am at -3 meters, I'm actually in a hole because I'm below ground level. If I am diving at -50 meters, I'm actually diving below sea level in the ocean. If I start borrowing money what happens is I start at $0 and then I borrow $1 and borrow $2, and I get further and further away from $0 in the bank because I'm owing the bank money, so I'm going into debt. I have a minus bank balance. You can also think of this as when you're looking at very cold temperatures, so below 0 degrees. And that's when you have, the frozen water bowls outside and so on. It's because it's very cold. It's below 0 degrees. So these are all the negative numbers going from the 0 down. Now, how does this relate to the Cartesian plane? Well, in fact, it's very simple. Because a Cartesian plane, which you can see over on this side, is just the same as having your horizontal number line and your vertical number line crossing each other at exactly 0. So where there's 0 on your horizontal number line and where the 0 is on your vertical number line, that's where you make your cross. And then you just draw your number lines from there. So it makes this cross with a horizontal line, which we call in mathematics in our Cartesian plane the x-axis. So the horizontal line we call the x-axis. And you've got your vertical line, your vertical number line, which we call in our Cartesian plane, we call that the y-axis. Now, to make things even more interesting, now you can depict any coordinate pair, and we call it a pair because it's actually always two numbers. You can depict any pair of numbers, a coordinate pair, somewhere onto this Cartesian plane. So let's look at the coordinate pair of 3 minus 4. The only thing you need to remember is that the first number in this coordinate pair is the number that goes onto the x-axis, and the second number is the number that goes on the y-axis. How am I going to draw this? Well, you need to think of where is the number 3 on the x-axis. Well, I need to draw the numbers in. So I know it's a positive 3 because there's no sign in front of it. So now I'm going to go into the positive side, 1, 2, 3 units. And here is the number 3 on my x-axis. Okay, so everywhere on these dots, I know that this is the number 3 on my x-axis. At the same time, though, the y value has to be at -4. So I know it's a negative number because there's a minus in front of it. So I'm going to go into the negative side on my y-axis, -1, -2, -3, and -4, -1. And I have to write the minus in front of these numbers because it's a negative number, -3 and -4. And here is -4 on my y-axis. So where these two sets of dots intersect, so at the same time where x is 3, y has to be -4. So where these two sets of dots intersect, that is that dot there. So the coordinate pair of 3 minus 4 lives on the Cartesian plane where this red dot is down here. So let's just quickly do another one. Let's just depict the coordinate pair -2, -2 and let's make it 4. So once again, all you need to remember is that the first value, the -2, is the x value. So on my x-axis, I need to find -2. So it's going to go into the negative side, -1, -2. So -1 lives here, -2 lives here. So here is -2 on my x-axis. At the same time, the y value has to be 4. So I know it's a positive 4 because there's no other sign in front of it. So I need to go 1, 2, 3, 4 dots to the positive side. And then I need to find where these two intersect. So obviously, it's going to be here. So where x is minus 2, y has to be 4. So that coordinate pair lives on this Cartesian plane at that red dot. Now there's just one exception you need to remember, and this is where these two lines meet each other. The coordinate pair is 0, 0. Because x has to be 0 at the same time that y has to be 0. Well, I hope you found this helpful, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave your questions in the comments section of this video. Have fun trying your coordinate pairs on the Cartesian plane. Bye!